So kids, we're going to start talking about solving quadratic equations. First, of course, what makes a quadratic equation? I hope you were paying attention in the last unit on polynomials, when we were classifying things and naming things. What made something quadratic was when the highest power of x was 2. So this would be has the highest power of x as 2. That would make it quadratic. If the highest power was 3, it'd be cubic. If the highest power is 1, that would be linear. We were working with linear equations all fall. Now we're going to work with quadratic equations, okay? Usually, this is kind of like what a general quadratic equation looks like, okay? There's 3 methods of solving quadratic equations. There's the first method, which is solve using square roots. That's what we're going to do on this sheet here today. There's also something called solving using factoring / zero product property. And then there's something called the quadratic formula, which we'll get to later. Okay? So before we actually get into solving quadratics, I want to do a reminder problem over here on the right. It's a basic problem from, first semester, right? How would you solve this? This equation, of course, is linear because the highest power is this invisible 1. And I'd like to think that all of you would say, oh, you would add 1. If I add 1, that becomes a 20. Then I would divide by 2. We get x equals 10. That wasn't hard, was it? And what are we doing there? We are isolating x. We are getting x by itself. Okay? We're getting x by itself. And that's important because when we solve quadratics, it's the same idea, except we want to get x squared by itself. Okay? So here, this problem down here, it looks a little bit more involved, but we want to get these x squareds on one side and by them and alone. So you're going to draw on your equation solving skills from first semester. Move that over. So you get x squared minus 5 equals 11. Then, of course, we would add 5. So we get x squared equals 16. So far, everything that we've done is exactly the same type of steps that we used solving linear equations back in the fall. So we have this one difference now here at the end. Well, a couple things you'll see. So we have x squared equals 16. So you ask yourself, what number multiplied by itself gives you 16? Well, most people usually come up with 4, and that's right. But remember, negative 4 multiplied by itself, negative 4 times negative 4 is also 16. So there's actually going to be 2 answers here, okay? Most quadratic equations will have 2 answers. So how we do this kind of officially is to get rid of this square, we take the square root of both sides. The square root cancels out this square, but you're not left with just x, you're left with the absolute value of x, and the square root of 16 is 4. And the reason why is, remember, this is like, we're looking at both sides of the number line. Where are numbers 4 units away from 0? Well, the number 4 is 4 units away from 0, but so is negative 4. Okay, so now we finish this up. Remember our absolute value rules from before. We drop the bars and write the same exact thing. And then we write a second equation, but make it negative. So whenever you take the square root of the square root of a quantity squared, that's going to give you the absolute value of x. And then we use our absolute value equation solving rules from way back in September to finish this up. All right. Now, I'm going to do some more of these. I'm not going to do this whole sheet on this video, but I'm going to do some of it anyway. So here, to solve for x, again, we want to get x squared by itself. So I move the 49 over. Now we want to undo this square, so we take the square root of both sides. That gives us the absolute value of x equals 7. Now we remove the bars, and we write down our two answers. Okay, this one below it's the same exact type of thing, right? It's a little bit more involved, but move the 1 over, divide by 5. Now, this is what's new now. Take the square root of both sides. Absolute value of x equals 2. So x is 2, and x is negative 2. Now here in this one that I skipped, x squared is actually already by itself, right? So we just take the square root of both sides. But what's the square root of 20? Not every square root's a perfect square. Not everyone's nice, right? So here you'd have to go to your calculator, and you would type in the square root of 20, and you're going to get this long decimal. Our default is going to be to round to the nearest hundredth. So you get 4.47. And now you just finish it like normal. Remove the bars, you get 4.47, and you get negative 4.47. So sometimes you're going to have to use your calculator. Okay, a couple more problems that are a little bit, that's a little bit different. So this, beginning with number 4 here, a lot of similarities, but a little bit different in the end. So you see here, and these other ones, we had this x squared that we wanted to get by itself. Here, though, the x is in the parentheses. We want to get this x minus 3 quantity squared by itself. Okay? A lot of times people want to distribute this 2. Do not distribute the 2. You can't distribute the 2 because of this squared here. So you just want to get this by itself. So move the 32 over first. Remember, whoops, that's squared. To get rid of this, a number in front of the parentheses means multiply, so we're going to divide both sides by 2. So I get x minus 3 squared equals 16. Now we want to undo this square, so we take the square root of both sides. Now remember, when you undo the square, that cancels, the square root cancels that. Now we have absolute value of x minus 3 equals 4. But again, if you remember back to our absolute value days, we now drop the bars, write the same exact thing, but then we do a second one because we want to look at the other side of the number line, set it equal to negative 4, and we actually have to solve both of these. We get x equals 7, and if I add 3 here, I get x equals negative 1. There you go. Notice how, again, on most of these, I get 2 answers. Sometimes they're not exactly, so like in a lot of these, they're the same exact number, except one's plus and one's minus. Here, these numbers, are not like that. They're totally different. Sometimes you'll get values that are both positive or both negative. All right. So up here, this one that I skipped, I didn't have anything written there. I just want to show you. Here's a unique situation. If I had this as a problem, I would move the 10 over. By subtracting, that would become negative 8. And then if I divide by 2, I'm going to get negative 4. Now we'd have to take the square root of both sides, right? But I hope you recall, you cannot take the square root of a negative number. So this one is no solution, right? There's no number multiplied by itself that can give you a negative, because a negative times a negative is a positive. All right, that's really the lesson. We've covered all the problems. I'm going to do just a few more here on the back, but then I'm going to put this solution document on Canvas as well, so you can check all the answers if you want to practice. I'll do this one, for example. X squared, move the 4 over. So that would be, whoops, I'm not too sure what, got some disappearing ink. I would take the absolute value of x squared. Sorry, the square root of x squared is absolute value of x equals 4. So x equals 4, x equals -4. Oh, what am I doing? No, that's right. I don't know what I was doing with that. I was looking at my answer key. I made a total mistake on something. Can fix that. So now what I do want to show is like number 9. Okay, here we want to divide by 16. Now, a lot of times people take out their calculator and they start dividing this right away. All right, don't do that. Don't do that. You should recognize, because sometimes you'll have to, but you should recognize that these are both perfect squares. So now when I take the square root of both sides, I get absolute value of x. Square root of 81 is 9. Square root of 16 is 4. So I get x equals 9/4 and x equals -9/4. So be on the lookout for those perfect squares. Okay. You should see the same thing for number 10. All right. And again, try it yourself. I'm going to post the solutions on Canvas. Here, some practice ones, move that over. I'm going to take the square root. I get absolute value. Square root of 10 is not nice. You need to use your calculator. So we get x equals 3.16, x equals -3.16. Okay. Number 12 is very similar. I'm not going to do that one. I'm not going to do 13 either. You can try. I'm going to go down here and do 14, and I'll do 14 and 15. Actually, I'll do 14 and 16. And you can try the other ones yourself. So again, we want to get this parentheses squared by itself. So move the 4 over by subtracting. Divide both sides by 5. And we now take the square root of both sides. So we get absolute value of x plus 6 equals 5. So x plus 6 equals 5. X plus 6 equals -5. And then subtract 6. X equals -1. Subtract 6. X equals -11. Voila. Same deal here. Move the 4 over. So that becomes a 6. Divide by 3. That becomes a 2. Take the square root of both sides. Absolute value of x minus 7 equals, now square root of 2 is not nice. You'd have to use your calculator. You're going to get 1.41. So now you remove the bars. Write the same exact thing on the left. Write the same exact thing on the right, but change the 1.41 to negative. So x equals 8.41. X equals, what's this going to be? -5.59, I think. No, wait. Why did I write plus 8 here? That didn't make sense. Let's fix that. It should be plus 7, -5.59. That'll do it. Okay. Actually, that's positive. Still making a mistake. Sorry about that. That should be positive 5.59. I'll post the rest of these solutions on Canvas.